Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan goes down UFC Fight Night December 2nd, and it's a great fight that the UFC's made because you have Beneil Dariush, who's been kind of on the cusp of a title shot for quite a while now. He's been like 7-8 fight win streak, but then he got knocked out by Oliveira, but he's still up there, right? And then you have Arman Tsarukyan, who's kind of been in that conversation since he showed up on short notice and gave Makhachev his toughest fight before Alexander Volkanovski, who was the pound for pound, right? And so he's kind of been the guy that people have been like, he might be the one to take Islam out, right? And now he's kind of worked his way up. That was his debut fight, and since then he's been on a kind of a tear. Only lost to Gamrot, which was a split decision, which I thought was kind of a robbery because I gave the first four rounds to Arman, and it was definitely a close fight. Like, each round was close, but I thought it was a pretty major robbery, not even like a light one at that. So either way, he's proved himself by coming back, getting some wins, and if he wins against Dariush, he'll probably be one fight away from fighting for the title, or he might actually be next. So I'm just going to go over who I think is going to win, why I think they're going to win, their strengths, their weaknesses, all of that. So let's get right into it. I had to click on it, I guess. Beneil Dariush's strengths and weaknesses. So one thing to know about Dariush, he's a phenomenal grappler. Really good with transitions and not staying in one position. So you saw this in his fight with, especially with Gamrot, because Gamrot was the guy who was really just continuously going for the takedowns, and he was not letting himself stay in one position, constantly moving about. He did get taken down by Gamrot several times, but each time he'd roll about and end up back on his feet or in a submission attempt, right? So it's not like he's impossible to take down. He does have an 80% takedown defense average, which is phenomenal, right? But he's shown himself to be able to get taken down, but not stay down in a disadvantaged position. He's constantly moving about. He loves those Grammy rolls of his. He does really well, and he's not on his back for very long. He also really loves good knees to the body of an opponent coming in for the takedown. Again, you saw this a lot with Gamrot. They say you're only as good as your last performance. Now, his last performance was against Oliveira, so I'll go into that. But this big win he had over Gamrot, who technically has a win over Tsarukyan, right? And every time that Gamrot would come in for a takedown, he would immediately get that knee to the body, and he landed that several times. Like, he was very witty with it. He loves his 1-1-2, 1-1 overhand combination. So I recognize that when he throws his shots, he'll usually go jab, jab. He'll follow with a cross, or he'll follow with an overhand right. And that's usually the way that Beneil likes to strike. He'll also throw a lot of head kicks, and he'll throw a lot of body kicks as well, mixed in with some leg kicks. So we're going to get into Arman in a bit, but you're going to see that they're kind of similar in their fighting style, right? He has power. He's not a lot, but he has put out guys before, right? Was it Draker, whatever his name was? He dropped Gamrot really badly, right? Like, Tsarukyan couldn't do that over 5 rounds. I mean, he hurt Gamrot for sure, but as far as just what Beneil did, right, just he's not the hardest hitting guy, but he definitely is a guy who has power in his punches. He's very hittable, though. He'll just stand there with his hands down and little to no, or just very weak head movement, right? So we saw this really against Oliveira, where when he was hurt by Oliveira, he was backing up, but his hands were down and he wasn't moving his head properly. So it was like, your head's kind of there for the taking. He's been knocked out before. He's been hurt before. And it seems like Beneil's striking the defense might be one of his weaker aspects, as far as if you have the guy backed up or hurt, or if you have him questioning a lot with the shots they're throwing, he'll probably just keep his hands down and just kind of look at you, right? Like, see what you're going to do next. So that is definitely a weakness in his game. We then go into Arman Tsarukyan's strengths and weaknesses. He's just a powerful, strong man, great wrestling, great entries. He was catching leg kicks straight into takedowns. You see this against Silva, for example, his previous fight. And one thing I want to mention, people are going to say for sure that, oh, look, he got almost KO'd, or he got rocked by Silva, who's unranked. I want to keep in mind that just because a guy is unranked doesn't mean they're terrible. Does that mean Joaquim Silva is one of the best fighters in the world? No. But just like everybody else, he was at one point, he is unranked. Everybody starts unranked at one point. And just because they're unranked doesn't mean they're terrible. And I will say, keep in mind that Arman was also taking that fight on short notice, right? He was prepared. He had his full camp, but he was preparing for a different opponent, and I think it was Renato Moicano. So he got then Silva instead. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. Did he get hurt? Yeah, but he came back and he won by TKO, so that's also something that's worth noting. He lands great lead body kicks, man. You really see this in the Silva fight and in the Gamrot fight. He was just throwing the most insane body kicks, and you saw Gamrot reacting to those. You saw Silva reacting to those. He's quick, and he puts his hips into them, so there's a lot of power as well when he's throwing his leg kicks as well. And there was a couple of times where you see Gamrot like really react to the kick that he's got from in the body. He also has really good timing. So there was a moment in the fight with Silva where Silva throws a knee in the clinch. Arman grabs it, takes him down. You see something similar to the wicked takedown he had on Joel Alvarez, which kind of spelled the beginning of the end for Alvarez, right? Tsarukyan hit a leg kick. I don't know what, Alvarez kind of like tripped and he was going for his own takedown, but then Tsarukyan reversed it. It was pretty insane. But really good timing overall. Really knows when he sees a position that could be advantageous. If he sees that his opponent is making a mistake, Arman's the type of guy to take advantage of it. He has crazy pace and pressure. He attempted 21 takedowns on Ismagulov and got 7 of them, right? So it might be like, oh, 21 attempted, 7 landed. That's not very impressive. Look at who he's fighting. Ismagulov is a tough cookie, right? And 7 landed on 21 takedowns. That pace, that pressure, definitely a sign of Arman Tsarukyan. He is a bit sloppy on the feet, so I do have to bring up his weaknesses now. He'll jump in sometimes with no setups and just eat huge counter shots. You really saw this in the Ismagulov fight. He was doing this several times, but he made up for it with his wrestling. But he did get countered badly for this by Silva, right? So when he throws his cross or his hook, especially his hook, he'll plant his feet like you want to, right? You want to generate that power. But when he did that, his hands went down completely, and when Joaquim Silva hit him with that counter shot, he got hit and he was badly wobbled. So you can't be doing that. If you're throwing your shots, you gotta, even if you're planted, you gotta be ready. You gotta have one hand by your chin or up, going back up to your chin as you throw the shot. But that's one thing I've recognized. He is a bit sloppy on the feet. His kicking game is pretty good, like his kickboxing, but his actual boxing seems to be one of his weaker points. In the fight with Gamrot, he was continuously showing that check left hook, and I was watching some more of his fights, and he does that a lot. When he's backing up, he'll kind of throw that left hook out completely out of range, and it's so obvious what he's doing, which is why he barely ever landed it on Gamrot. Over the 5 rounds, it was pretty obvious every time he was being backed up, he would throw out a hook, and he would never land it. He doesn't have a ton of power, so that's not to say that he doesn't have any power. Like, he's knocked guys out before, and he's gotten TKO wins, but he's not exactly knocking guys out, and he's in phenomenal shape, and he just looks like one of those guys who generate so much power. And while his body kicks may have a lot of power, his punches don't have as much. He lands a lot on Steamroller, Frivola. He was landing good shots that wasn't really hurting him. Gamrot, it was mainly, I think, the kicks that were kind of adding up and stuff. In general, he's not really known for his crazy power, and he doesn't have a lot of submission either, so he's kind of a smother, ground and pound type of guy. He's going to get you down, and he's going to smother you with his wrestling, and he might get some ground and pound on you, but he's not going to really chase the submissions. And when he's on top of you and he's got your back, there's always a threat when a guy has your back. But in Arman's case, he had the back of Silva, and Silva didn't know what to do with the hands, and he still couldn't really do anything when he had the back of Silva. So he is a ground and pound fighter, true to his style. So how do I think the fight goes? I just see this being one of those fights where the takedowns of Arman are going to go against the craftiness of Beneil, right? Because in general, the grappling just might get canceled out, because when you're looking at Arman, he's the guy who's really good with the grappling as far as the wrestling goes. He's good at grabbing you. He's good at his entries. He's good at picking you up and dropping you and controlling you. Whereas Beneil is so crafty, right? You get him down for a second like Gamrot did. He's immediately Grammy rolling. He's immediately looking for a way out. He's getting back to his feet. He can't be kept down for too long. Whereas Arman is more so go for the takedown, get you down, you might get back up, separate, and you'll go for it again eventually, right? If it comes to the feet, I do believe Arman has the advantage. So when I was originally thinking of this fight for the past couple of days, I was going more Beneil, because Beneil's an underdog, and he's a really good underdog pick, I think, because if the grappling is canceled out, Arman does have a lot of holes in his striking, but the more I watched Beneil's fights as well, I saw, okay, Beneil's not exactly he's not exactly Alex Pereira or Israel Adesanya himself, right? They both make mistakes. Arman can be sloppy and his shot's obvious, while Beneil keeps his hands down, minimal head movement to make up for it. Both men do love the body kicks and head kicks, but Arman is more faster. I do think Beneil hits harder in general, but Arman is going to have the speed advantage. And one thing you have to keep in mind is momentum. Arman's coming off of a win, and he's on, I think, a 2-fight win streak now. I think his fight with Gamrot should be considered a victory. Obviously, technically it's not. But he is coming off of a win while Beneil's coming off of a massive KO loss to Charles Oliveira. So you got to think mentally, where does that put him versus Arman? Arman, I don't know what I wrote there, but I still think he beat Gamrot. I had him 4-1, and I get that the rounds, especially past the second round, were kind of close. But I just don't think you can give Gamrot 3 rounds. You can give him maybe 2 at most, but it was just an unfortunate robbery. I consider that a pretty big robbery. And the reason why I bring that up is because Dariush also fought Gamrot, and he beat him. It was a 3-rounder fight. I think it was like a 29-28. Styles do make fights, so I don't really like comparing it as much. Arman's path to victory really relies on keeping the pressure on the feet, threatening takedowns. Man, just back him up. Get those body kicks going that he loves. Get those high kicks to the head that we know Oliveira was able to land. Keep going for the takedown. You know, Dariush can get taken down. He's shown that before. He's crafty. He's going to get back up, but you just got to keep doing that. You got to tire him out, right? Beneil's never been in a 5-round fight. That's very important to note. He's never been in a 5-round fight. And Arman's been in one with Gamrot, and he went all 5 rounds. He did slow down as the fight went on, but he still has that experience, and he needs to use that to tire Dariush out, who's coming in here with only 3-round fights. Whereas Beneil needs to focus on counter-punching. Arman's sloppy. Again, he's going to jump in occasionally, just like not set anything up, just jump in. And he's been wobbled before. We've seen by Silva. And Dariush hits really hard, so Dariush could take advantage of that and get something going. But with that being said, I'm going more so with Arman. It's like a 51-49. I think Beneil is a fantastic underdog pick here. I'm surprised he is the underdog, honestly. But when it comes down to the wrestling, I could see Arman getting him down, and I could see Beneil giving him some trouble and getting back up. And when it comes to the feet, I just think Arman is slightly better. He's better with the body kicks. I think he has really good ones. He can use that to tire Dariush out. He's got a good chin, whereas Dariush is a bit more chinny. He gets wobbled a bit more. He's been knocked out several times. And of course, he is, I think, 34, which of course is pretty young. But in MMA, the way it works is like if you're in the lower weight classes, once you're 34, 35, you kind of hit your peak, or you're kind of phasing out of your peak, right? Like TJ Dillashaw, Jose Aldo, by the time they were like 35, I think Jose Aldo was like 33, and Dillashaw was like 35, and it was kind of game over for them. Whereas Alex Pereira is 36, turning 37. Jan Blachowicz is like 41. In the light heavyweight division, Glover Teixeira was like 41, 42 when he became champion. So in the bigger weight classes, you can get away. And one thing about Beneil too is that he looks kind of like he's got that white hair already, kind of all around his head. Everybody ages different, and in Beneil's case, he might just be one of those guys who's kind of getting up there faster, whereas like a guy like Jan Blachowicz he's the same at 41 like he was at 35. So I'm curious to see, is Beneil kind of fading out? He looked good in the Oliveira fight until the knockout. I mean, he looked decent enough. He had Oliveira on the ground. Couldn't get much done, but a lot of people wouldn't even risk that. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting fight. I think we're going to see a lot of striking between these two when the grappling kind of gets canceled out. You're going to see some clinch work, and you're going to see these guys separate and just go at it in the feet. And when it comes to that, I am going to go with Arman Tsarukyan. So, yeah, tell me what you guys think. Arman, Beneil, who you got in this one. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.